Hello everybody, welcome back to Easy Weeknight Cooking with Heart's Desire Spice Blends, and tonight we've got something really great for you. And like you may have seen on our page earlier today, this is a 30-year-old recipe that was named by kids. Imagine that. I was one of those kids. So right now we're going to have an assistant go ahead and share this to a couple of groups for us, because we found some groups that really appreciate this kind of thing. And so if you find that you really love Easy Weeknight Cooking, share the post by all means. And for those of you who will see this on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe and go ahead and share it with your friends, please. Now, what are we doing tonight? We are doing something called beef stuff. Yes, kids definitely named this. And there is a history behind this stuff. A long time ago, seemingly in a galaxy far away, we lived elsewhere. We lived in Southern California. My dad was a really great fan of something called the Frugal Gourmet. And he was doing some beef stock for a soup that he was going to be doing later on. And so he, went ahead and filled a crock pot full of the cheapest beef he could find and as many onions as he could find that would still fit in the pot, and just let it go all night long. And the next morning, my brother and I wake up, and we're rubbing our eyes and the whole 9 yards, and we zombie out to the kitchen and go, oh my gosh, what is that? I've got to have some right now. I'm hungry. Wow, that smells terrific. And so we just bugged my dad until he just scrambled up some eggs, put it on some of this stuff, and handed it to us for breakfast. And here we are eating it over the kitchen sink out of tortillas, and it has been a family favorite ever since. So from our house to yours, we're going to present one of the easiest recipes in history for you guys. And what are you going to need? The recipe is right in the description, so check that out. You're going to need some sort of beef cut. Now, this is a roast. You can get stew meat, you can get the cheapest steaks you can find beef spirit, whatever works. And definitely whatever works. Cheapest cut of beef you can find, about 2 pounds to start off with. If you're going to be cooking for a crowd, definitely expand the recipe, double, triple, whatever it takes. You're going to need a large onion, and I do mean large. So find one of the largest onions you can find, and we're great. And you're going to need Mexican chili powder. Definitely a win here. Now, if you don't have Mexican chili powder, but you do want more of a bite, a bit more spiciness to it, a little bit more heat, use some of our chili bowl. Oh, it's great stuff. Now, a little bit about the Mexican chili powder. It smells and tastes like enchiladas. So seriously, it's a major win. We've used it as taco seasoning, we've used it to make enchilada sauce, and tonight we're going to be making one of the easiest ways to get taco meat, burrito fixings, whatever, out of the cheapest cut of beef you can find. So, what are we going to do? We're going to cut up the onion. We're going to plop our beef right in a crock pot. Now, you can go ahead and use something like a Dutch oven if you like. Stick it in the oven for several hours until it falls apart at about 300, and you're done. But we like using the crock pot, or as in today, we actually use the Instant Pot, and because one of my crock pots died. Boo-hoo. So, it's a good thing I've got an Instant Pot now, right? So anyway, so you can use your Instant Pot if you need it to be done very quickly. It's probably going to be on high pressure for about 45 minutes until it falls apart, and that's what we're looking for. Beef that just falls apart. The high acidity from the onion is going to help it with that, so we definitely want the onions on top of the meat, and the Mexican chili powder is going to give you a wallop of flavor. So, starting out, first things first, your meat goes in the bottom of your crock pot. And because we want those onions to be staying on top and just making those juices go all the way through the meat, it helps the meat actually, it helps the connective tissue dissolve, helps the meat become very, very tender, the whole 9 yards. And it also pulls the spices through the meat. So go ahead and just plop your meat right into your crock pot. There we go. And this can go aside. What's next? Onion, my darlings. Lots and lots of onions. Now, how big you slice your onions is going to be totally up to you. You do not need large pieces. You do not need tiny pieces unless your family dictates that you must have large pieces or must have tiny pieces. So go ahead and cut that up as fine or coarse as you like, as long as it's not just a quarter onion here and there. So my favorite thing to do, of course, cut off the stem end first, set that aside. Now cut the whole thing in half from the root end. And there we go. Now I can go ahead and peel this darling lovely. I usually take the very first layer off because that takes all of the paper off as well and just makes things very nice. Leave your root end on there because that is going to be a beautiful handle, and we like having handles. That way our fingers stay safe. Go ahead and just peel your onion. And today, in order to keep this from making me cry all over camera, I actually refrigerated my onions. And I'm not getting as much of a spritz of onion right in my face, and it helps a lot. So if you're going to be using lots of onions and cutting up lots of onions, refrigerate them first, nice and cold, without freezing them. And so how are we going to cut this? We're going to be cutting to but not through the root end, and then turning it and cutting sideways. And that way your onion stays all in one piece until you're totally done, and you don't have as many things just wiggling all over the place and making your and putting your fingers in danger. So I've cut to but not through the root end, and as you can see, it is staying together. And now turn it 90 degrees and go ahead and give it a chop. Now, again, you're going to do this based on your family's likes and desires when it comes to onion. Me, I like large pieces of onion because that's just wonderful. So, go ahead and throw that on in without throwing it all over the counter. Messy cook? Yes, I definitely, the Swedish chef and I have a lot of things in common. So go ahead and to, but not through, the edge, the farthest edge of your onion, and you are done. And sometimes the root end gets you cut a little too close to the root end, leaves that core there. Go ahead and cut that out. And, oh, you know what? I skipped a step. Before you put your onions in, you really ought to put your Mexican chili powder in. And how much Mexican chili powder are you going to need? And why do I say that? I say that because when you put your Mexican chili powder in between your meat and your onions, that flavor gets pulled down through the meat as those onions dissolve and as the meat cooks. There's lots of really great science behind that. And basically it comes down to something called osmosis. Basically what happens is water comes out of something, as salt or another fluid goes into cells, water comes out of cells. And so in order for that to happen, something needs to be there to go into them in order for something to come out. And so as your food expresses the water here, that's going to create a beautiful cooking liquid that then helps break down the rest of the meat. There's a lot more acid in there and just a lot of other compounds that are beautiful in onions and vinegar and citrus juice and stuff like that, that will help break down the meat and make it very, very tender and just fall apart. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a shredded beef by the time we're done. And yes, your family will storm the kitchen and go, what is it? I want it now. And that's what happened in my family. What is that? I want it now. So this stuff never lasted long. So how much of this Mexican chili powder are we going to need? 1 tablespoon. When I grew up making this, it's like, okay, palmful. And with this stuff, it's that size palmful, not the whole big deal. Why? Because Heart's Desire spice blends are very, very strong, and you don't want to overspice your cooking. Now, if you say, okay, 1 tablespoon was great, but I want more flavor, go ahead and put in more. But start off with 1 tablespoon, and that will fill the center of your palm. So, whoopsie. Bit much came out. Okay, 1 tablespoon. And yes, we are being very generous tonight. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? Oh, this stuff smells so good. So good. Okay, now break up your onions when you put it in. Put them in. And oftentimes when we're making this, we fill it to the point where we've got to kind of jam the lid on and with onions. And that is a family secret. So if you want to put even more onions in there, oh, please do. Now, some people will say, you know, 1 large onion is totally enough. And after making this, because honestly, the onions express a lot of liquid, so it's going to be very juicy afterwards. And when you're done with this, and it's done cooking, oftentimes overnight, or put it in just before you go to work, come home, and you've got dinner. Seriously, this is so cool. And so what you're going to do there is, if you don't want as much liquid, reduce the onions a little bit. But you still want your onions for all that wonderful flavor and just the flavor enhancing properties of the onions themselves. A lot of people will go ahead and after they get home, they will go ahead and cut up a bunch of vegetables and put in a little extra stock, and it's great. So there's that. And what does this look like when it's done? Because this is ready to go in the crock pot right now. So what does it look like when it's done? Whoa. Let me show you. Okay. There we are. Now, there we are, right there. It's gorgeous. I'm going to actually bring you closer. Go ahead and push that aside and bring you closer so you can take a look at this. It's awesome. Absolutely awesome. So, there we go. And what am I looking at here? There we go. So this is what we're looking at here, and that beef has totally fallen apart. Totally fallen apart. I mean, look at that. It's falling apart so much that when I pick it up, it just crumbles. Just like that. And we've got such a gorgeous, gorgeous gravy here. And it is reduced enough, the gravy has reduced enough that you hardly need any thickener for this. I mean, seriously, you need to look at that. Let's see if I can get just some gravy there. Look at that. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. And so at this point, what you're going to do is you're going to just break up this beef. And you're going to break it up so that it's easy to take out with just a fork. And sometimes, you know, it's going to have the consistency of pulled pork. And honestly, all I'm doing right now is taking one piece of beef and rubbing it up against the others, and they are falling apart and shredding. You want to shred this baby. Definitely want to shred this stuff. And so there we go. I'm thinking you should be able to see that. With tongs, you can just kind of squish the stuff and it falls apart really readily when it's done. And sometimes you've got to press it up against the side of your pan a bit. And there you go. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous stuff. You've got a lot of really great gravy in there. And the onions have pretty much dissolved. So you don't have to worry about it being horribly soupy if you only use one onion and just kind of leave the lid off for the last couple of hours. And so now you have gorgeous, gorgeous burrito mix filling or taco filling, you name it. So what am I going to do now? My friends, I'm going to cut up a little bit of green onion and an avocado, and we're going to put together a burrito of this stuff because it is so good that way. And in the next morning, scramble some eggs, do the same thing. Score. Big, big score. So, where did I put this? Right in front of my face. So now when I'm cutting up an avocado, I like to use a butter knife, one with serrations on it. Why? Because a lot of ERs, when the avocado toast craze came in, I had a lot of people come in who had sliced their hand with a knife because of an avocado. They've termed this avocado hand. It is enough of a thing that it got its own name in several ERs. So, cutting an avocado in your hand with a sharp knife is not always the brightest thing in the world. So, I like using a butter knife for that, table knife. Go ahead and insert that right into the avocado, and it cuts the skin very nicely after it's been inserted. And you don't have to worry about slicing your hand if this slips. Next thing is the pit. Go ahead and rock this back and forth until it grabs the pit pretty well, and then twist. Good. And there you go. You have an avocado that's been sliced, pitted, and you don't have to get stitches. Go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and just slice the interior of the avocado without slicing through the rind, because I like mini slices. Now, if you want more of a guacamole kind of thing, go ahead and take a fork and just kind of scramble the avocado, no big deal. Now, give me a tortilla. Come here. This is looking great. So I'm going to loosen some of this avocado real quick. Now, put whatever you like on these things. I mean, this is a seriously easy peasy recipe that does not take a lot of prep. Easy, easy peasy. Grab yourself, go ahead and stir this up. This will be juicy, by the way. Make sure you've got napkins. Seriously, make sure you've got napkins. Stir that up, grab some. There you go. Yes! Meaty goodness, yes! Oh. You can tell I like that kind of stuff. Grab yourself a little bit of cheese. I love me my cheese. But now you know why I'm fluffy. Okay, and grab yourself a little bit of green onion if that's something you like to do, because for me, you betcha. Now, there's a trick to green onion. Oftentimes, when you cut a green onion, you get this nice, beautiful long string, especially of the greens, that are cut on the top but not on the bottom. There is a way to make sure that you cut it all the way through. And in my family, we always strip the very top layer off of our green onions. Cut off the roots, cut off the very, very tips. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a rocking and sliding motion when cutting our green onions. And with that, that generally cuts that bottom membrane. You get a lot fewer of those slices that just stick together. Definitely getting used to that rocking sliding motion helps a lot. It really helps a ton. All the way down. when you get near the end, slow down. You don't want to cut your fingers. And there we go. We've got ourselves some green onion. We've got ourselves some cheese on that beef stuff on a tortilla. Sprinkle these babies on there. And now grab your avocado, if you want to do, say, pico de gallo or some sort of salsa, you may want to drain it first, or it really kind of depends on you. Or one of my favorite things, mix it with sour cream and then put it on. You get it less juicy and you get all the flavor. And so, there we go. If that isn't gorgeous, it probably needs a little bit of tomato or salsa. But if that isn't gorgeous, I don't know what is. So from our kitchen to yours, this is beef stuff. It's amazing. And I'm hungry. So keep things tasty, and we will see you next week. And next week, we are going to do beef stew using provincial poultry. And I'll tell you how that works next week. Have a great one, guys, and keep things tasty.